Here we go. So yeah, today's topic is going to be digital marketing for small businesses. For those of you who have just joined, my name is Andrew Schuster. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Further Insights. We're a digital marketing firm based here in Baltimore. We have an office down in Austin, Texas as well. And yeah, we've just helped dozens of small businesses go from zero to sustainable in some cases, and other we've gone from zero to major growth, industry leading businesses. It really just depends on the goals of the business, and really our kind of entire practice is rooted in the fact that there's no one size fits all solution. There's no silver bullet, but there are certain tactics that are proven, certain platforms that work for certain industries, and a lot of great examples of things that have already worked. So with that said, we essentially look at the ecosystem, if you will, of digital marketing, the things that are available to small businesses in these 6 areas, starting with market research and going all the way through performance tracking. So that goes to be said, everything is essentially a building block. And in our view, in our experience, effective digital marketing, and I go a step further to say effective business growth, starts with a foundational framework, a market product fit. And for everybody who's in the startup world, I know there's a lot of discussion about that and the lean startup methodology. A lot of that is rooted in experimentation, but with things like market research, which we'll get into in detail, you can really mitigate a lot of risk by understanding what already exists in the market, what your customers and prospects are looking for, what the competitors are doing. And it really allows you to kind of get a handle on the market opportunity before you dive right in. So having been on the startup side of things, and also working directly with small businesses, I've really seen that doing market research and taking the time to do it right without waiting to test your theory is a really important starting point. And if you kind of look at it like a building, a kind of foundational element is the market research to understand what's possible overall for the business. So can't stress that enough. It's critically important, whether you're just starting a business or if you're running a campaign, it never ends. And to that point, this kind of process that we're outlining here, which is really rooted in experimentation, it's a never-ending practice. So, you're going to use it to start your business, and you're going to use a variety of tools and a variety of strategies and market research and, content marketing to test your market opportunity, see if it's possible to achieve what you're dreaming of. And then once you get there and you start seeing traction, or not, you still need to be able to test and refine your methodology. So while there's a variety of tools available and there's a variety of things you could use, it's an ongoing practice. It's never going to be a one and done thing. It's something that requires really a dedicated focus. But knowing small businesses are short-staffed, overworked, underpaid, and just getting started with little to no kind of playbook, our goal for today is to really empower everybody with some of the knowledge that we've uncovered about really what you can do in a cost-effective and very efficient manner. So again, market research is kind of that first building block. And from there, once you have a basic idea of the market opportunity, you really want to make sure you have the right infrastructure to go out and conduct marketing tests. So that's everything from making sure you have Google Analytics installed to making sure you have Facebook Pixel installed. So you can gather as much data as possible and be in a position to act on it when you find the insights that are relevant to the business, to the campaign, to the opportunity you're trying to tackle. So we'll get into optimal infrastructure and provide some examples of what you can do there. And once you have it set, basic website, things like that, and you have all the right analytics infrastructure set up, then you can really move into the next step, which would be inbound marketing. For those of you who are familiar with HubSpot, that is one of their core philosophies. But at the end of the day, it's really using highly relevant, very valuable content to attract potential customers. And it goes to be said that it's not enough to just put a blog post out and hope for the best anymore. While that's effective and you might get some likes and clicks, if there's not an actionable next step, what we're going to call a call to action in your content marketing, you're really leaving money on the table. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be something as simple as schedule a free consultation using a tool like Calendly, right? Where people can schedule a time to talk with you and you can offer them just your time. It could also be something like a lead magnet, which would be something a little more robust on the content side. Maybe it's a white paper, an ebook, a calculator. Again, really depends on the business, the industry. And our view is to really help our clients accomplish their goals by understanding what their real vision is and what their mission is, and then kind of reconciling that with what's possible in the market based on that preliminary market research, so that everything kind of builds on top of the other, and it allows us to really go out and test theories and test topic ideas and test different types of content, different platforms in a way that's cost effective, and hopefully very valuable in the long term, to the point that hopefully it can either succeed very quickly or fail fast. So just like in the lean and agile methodologies in startups and software, in marketing, you do want to really take that iterative, very kind of rapid fire experimental approach and combine those in a way where you can quickly understand what's working and what's not, so that you don't get in too deep to something without knowing what the economics look like. So again, market research framework will give you the basis to create a basic infrastructure, and then you can go out and actually test your theories in a way that's actually going to give you meaningful data that you can act on. And then once you have that framework, you're going to start thinking about distribution. So if you have a clear idea of who the market is, you put some content together that people are really enjoying, and they're filling out your form, or they're downloading your white paper, or making a reservation if you're a restaurant, or buying your product. If you have that at a basic level, and you have a proof of concept that people want what you're offering, then you can really start to expand and push yourself out there in a much more meaningful way. And that could be anything from running ad campaigns to testing out new social platforms that you think are worthwhile, to doing partnerships on social. Social is a very complex yet very simple, I'd say, distribution opportunity. But at the end of the day, the platforms are all very unique, and what's right for one business isn't necessarily right for the other. And then again, you can't be everywhere all the time. You can't be all things to all people. So understanding how to use social for your business by seeing what your competitors are doing, seeing what the market is doing, seeing what your audience really wants, is very valuable. And it's also sometimes worthwhile, if you have the bandwidth and interest, to diversify and get a kind of early adopter head start on new platforms like your TikToks and new emerging channels like that. Obviously, you want to have the core channels, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter, but to say that all things are equal for all businesses is not true. For a B2B business, LinkedIn is just critically more important than Facebook, where people really don't want to be bombarded with business information, but being able to be found on Facebook and get the search engine optimization and the Google ranking because you're listed on Facebook has value. There's retargeting and incredibly powerful ad opportunities on Facebook. So all that goes to be said, social is a major distribution opportunity and a way to engage with your audience, but it really is a tailored approach, not a one size fits all approach. So that's really how you're going to cost effectively go out there and meet your audience where they are, and make sure that they want what you're offering, and make sure that you're delivering value in the industry and for your customers and for your prospects. And this next step is really a little less B2C. I think for a lot of companies, sales is a dirty word, but at the end of the day, with the technology that's out there right now, sales is a very effective way to get in front of the right customers. So marketing is inherently connected to sales, and we're a HubSpot partner, so you'll hear me talk a lot about HubSpot and their methodologies. But inbound and outbound are two different things. But when the content and the brand is consistent and everything you're producing all has your DNA in it, it essentially will translate across platforms. But outbound marketing is something we're going to call the new sales, and it's not like you're going door to door. It's like you're sending highly personalized, highly relevant automated email campaigns out to 50, 100, 500 prospects in the industry you're looking to go after, something we'll call more account-based marketing. So outbound marketing and kind of cold calling, if you will, can be a much more data-driven, sophisticated, technology-driven experience that is mutually beneficial for both your sales team as well as the prospects. So we'll get into that as well. And then lastly, it's just the idea of performance tracking, right? As I mentioned at the beginning, every single one of these steps is a building block. And performance tracking is really that lookout at the top of the ship, and making sure you have the ability to quickly make decisions, right? Get the data you're looking for in a quick, meaningful, and actionable way, but also, have the capability because of, the infrastructure, item number two, because that infrastructure that you set up, that you can really see the most granular, specific details about anything you're doing, any activities you're doing, from inbound to outbound, social media down the line. Just want to make sure you have a handle on all that data. And we have some great ways that you can do that with some tools available through Google and other providers. But at any rate, that's really the lay of the land. That's kind of the overview of what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to get into it from there, starting with market research. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, for those of you who weren't on, if you have any questions while we're going through, feel free to just raise a virtual emoji hand in the chat, and we'll stop and pause if you have a specific question. Feel free to type it in. But we are going to do some Q&A at the end. And I do want to stress that this is really meant to be helpful and actionable. A lot of this is a little more theoretical about things you could do based on our experience. But if you have a specific question about your business or any of the specific areas that we're going to be talking about today, definitely feel free to interject, or again, hold your questions till the end. So starting with market research, right? It's a foundational, critical element in not only marketing or content marketing, but in really building a business and starting a business. Doing the research, taking the time to do it is so essential, and I can't stress that enough. Whether you're trying to start a major high growth startup, or you're looking to just build a really sustainable local small business, market research is important. And it's not just surveying the masses and trying to get as much data as possible, but trying to get the right data and making sure you have a clear understanding of what the market opportunity is. The worst thing you can do is let your opinion or others' opinions drive your investment, and that's got to be a critical kind of line of defense in my view. And in our view, as a business owner, you need to make sure you have a handle on the opportunity, what's possible within reason. There's some things we don't know, right? There's unknowns in a lot of markets, especially new markets. But the more data you have, the more research you do, the more successful you're going to be in the end. As long as you're willing to listen to the data and really challenge your assumptions. And you might be right on the money, you might be pretty far off base, but this part of the process really allows you to understand what's doable and what's not. So a couple things to look for at the market research stage: search analysis, seeing what people are searching for. I will admit, for years, I did not have a handle on this, and we were coming up with new ideas and new ways to brand our products and services. And while we thought they were cool, and I think a lot of people thought they were interesting in conversation, that's not what the market was looking for. So you're really going to go kind of swim upstream if you're investing in content and in marketing that isn't what people are actually looking for. So with a little bit of search analysis using tools like Google Trends, you can just see some basic search trends. We use a great tool called SEMrush, which is a paid service, but there's also a free tool they offer where you can just type in some keywords and see how many searches there are a month, see how competitive they are. And obviously SEO is its own practice in and of itself, but just by getting kind of a cursory glance and a kind of overview of what people are actually searching for, you can really go fishing where the fish are instead of trying to swim upstream. So that's a really great starting point, and it doesn't have to be SEMrush, expensive software. It can really be something as simple as just doing a gut check with Google Trends. The other thing to look at is competitive analysis, right? Understanding what your competitors are doing, the successful ones at that, is a really great way to get a start and kind of test the market to see if you can be competitive. At the end of the day, if somebody in your market is doing what you're doing really well, emulation is really acceptable. Obviously, you don't want to steal exactly what they're doing, but imitation is the finest form of flattery. So if you know a competitor that's doing something great and you believe that you can differentiate in some way, shape, or form to provide customers or prospects with another choice by what you're offering, you can really learn a lot about that in competitive analysis. You can also learn that maybe there's a couple of channels that are underserved by some of your biggest competitors, like LinkedIn, or let's say your audience is, for some reason on TikTok, right? If they're on TikTok and you see your competitors aren't there, but your customers are, that's a great opportunity to differentiate and kind of get a first mover advantage there. And then just lastly, if you have the data already, if you have Google Analytics installed on your site, if you're going to run a new campaign, if you're just starting from scratch entirely, any data you have to work with is super valuable. That could be, customer data, just about prior sales. What what do the trends look like? Where are most of your customers coming from? What's the lifetime value of that customer? What area of the city are they coming from? Understanding who your most valuable audience is already is a great starting point. So a lot of times I think people overlook the fact that their best marketing are their customers, referrals, word of mouth, testimonials. That is tremendously valuable. And if you have some early adopters and people that love what you have, talk to them. Don't just look at the trends and do some analysis to say, hey, we think that, our market is 35-year-old women in Baltimore City. Go a step further, talk to those customers, make sure it's not just because you're friends and family with them, make sure it's because they love your product, and then go run a survey, for example, with people that look like those core customers to see if that is a real need, a real opportunity. So, there are some things that may seem like opportunities that aren't, right? When you look micro versus macro, one-on-one conversations versus, a survey of 50 to 100 people, but, take that all into consideration. The more research you do, the better. Focus groups, surveys, all these extra things you could do at a cost are great, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of great free ways to understand your market opportunity. So, that said, in any competitive market, I'd say in any market actually, differentiation is critical. It's key, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like we were saying, imitation is the finest form of flattery, right? If you have a competitor who's doing something great and it's working, you don't want to miss out on that opportunity as well, as long as you're differentiated, right? So if you know what's possible, you know what your competitors are doing, and you have some way to beat them on price, on speed, on design, whatever that unique value proposition is, a UVP, you want to lead with that in all of your communications. So you don't necessarily want to go, David versus Goliath kind of thing and go try to punch above your weight class right out of the gate. But, definitely getting an understanding of where you stand in the market, what your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities are. I know a lot of you in the startup world are familiar with SWOT analysis. Do that stuff. It's not just an exercise. It's really, really valuable if you do it right and you do it in a way that you can act on and test. So, communication with your customers early and often, whether it's one-on-one communication, if you have that opportunity, whether it's a handwritten note, whether it's follow-up surveys after they buy your product, communicate with them early and often through social, like wherever your customers are, however you can engage with them without annoying them, and by adding value wherever you can, do that early and often. And again, do it with what's unique and special about your brand, but do not reinvent the wheel. Don't try to, win on something that's new and compelling and novel because it sounds cool. Make sure that people find you based on what the thing is you're offering, and then win and differentiate with your brand, your website, your copy, your product. So if you've invented the world's best water bottle for whatever reason that might be, and you have this technology that you love, and you're investing all of your time, money, and energy into that technology that's called, freeze tech. Nobody knows what that is. So if you're only investing in freeze tech, like you're not going to win. So by, getting into the water bottle market and seeing where those opportunities are, and then differentiating with the fact that you're the best water bottle in the world because of freeze tech, that's where the magic starts to happen. And that's where you really can differentiate without having to reinvent the wheel. So once you have a basis and you've done your market research, you know where you stand. Let's say you're just starting, you need the right infrastructure. So it doesn't have to be major. It's an iterative, long-term process. Your website, your social, your software stack, everything can get built over time, but there's some pieces of the puzzle that if you don't get them right out of the gate, you're really going to be in a difficult situation down the line where you're literally leaving money on the table and you won't be able to act on all that the data from the traffic that you've hard earned. So it's essential, and I really can't stress how essential it is. Everything in digital marketing is to have that infrastructure set properly. So it can be as simple as a one-page website with a tool called Lead Pages, which is what we use for our website. It's a great, easy to use a landing page and website builder that's just got all the bells and whistles built in. It's a very cost-effective way to get started. You could use Lead Pages, get Google Analytics set up, drop the Google Analytics ID into Lead Pages, and you've got a website with tracking. It could be that simple. A lot of times people will get so heavily invested in the creativity of their idea that they get lost and forget about the fact that, you know, the market demand can only be proven if the data is there. So you do want to be methodical. You do want to take your time. You want to make sure you have a great infrastructure, great user experience on your website, all of that stuff. But there's so much great off-the-shelf technology that it at some point, if you don't act on it and you don't give people the opportunity to engage with your brand and try to sell your product or whatever it is you're offering, you're just delaying the inevitable, and somebody else will come and you know, take that opportunity that you're trying to build if it is a good one. So it's really important. And again, there's a lot of free and simple ways to do this, but at the end of the day, it can be as advanced as you can make it. We'll say a lot of people invest too heavily early on in their website, thinking it has to be something that that they think it needs to be, but in reality, it really needs to be an effective website, right? Like calls to action, the ability for people to find what they're looking for. Simple is the key here. It doesn't have to be this crazy robust experience. Something to look at here would be the idea of growth-driven design. It's a HubSpot principle, and it basically goes to say that, you know, by starting with just a simple page, getting data and seeing how people engage with your site, you can then make some more informed decisions as you go and add more pages and move buttons around and things like that as you go, run split tests to see if somebody clicks on a blue button versus a green button. There's all sorts of great ways to really optimize your website, even from like a layman perspective. You don't need to be a developer to have an effective website. So again, take a look at lead pages. HubSpot's got their own website tool. It's just way too expensive, frankly, but it's a great website builder. WordPress is fine if you know somebody who's a WordPress developer, but you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a website. You know, if you're just getting started, one page, lead pages, $20, get it out there and see what the market demand looks like. And then, you know, get enough money and enough revenue in the door where you can actually invest in the user experience needed to scale. So yeah, once you have your website, once you have some infrastructure, you have a basic idea of your market opportunity. You got to get outside of just your bubble and your friends and family and your just direct social network seeing what you're doing. So really the next step is this idea of inbound marketing. And it's really the idea of driving people to you based on the topic, the product, the service. And again, everything's going to go back to that first phase of market research. But if we know what the topics are that are important to our audience, because we saw the SERP analysis, right, which is really like what the organic ranking is, search engine ranking is for each article within a search term, right? Like if it's water bottles, we'll see who the top 10 organic rankings are, which companies are ranking and what they're writing about. That'll give you a good idea what your market's looking for, you know, and in some cases it makes sense, right? There's only a couple hundred searches a month and you can differentiate because it's a competitive term. You know, you're going to want to write exactly about that term. But in other cases where, you know, it's just a very flooded market, you know, there's just too many players, well-funded players in the space to break through. Then you can start looking for alternative keywords and long tail keywords and things like that, which again is a separate discussion. But assuming you know what the keywords are and what the market opportunity is, you know, then not only do you need to drive traffic, you then need to actually convert them into leads and then ultimately into customers. So the easiest, most effective way to do this is with this idea of inbound marketing. So on your website, you can create a simple landing page. Let's say your call to action is, you know, get a month trial, get first month free of whatever your service is that you're offering. Having a landing page that outlines what it is, letting people know what they're in store for, and a simple call to action is to sign up now. That could be it, right? It could be that effective. And if what you're offering is that valuable, people would just fill it out. But in a lot of cases, particularly more on the B2B side, people need a little more time. It's a little bit of a longer sales cycle. People need some idea of, you know, how they're going to make this investment, especially if it's a higher priced item on the B2B side, you know, software development, things like that. So, you know, whether you're a law firm or you're a software shop, and really mostly B2B, having a lead magnet like a white paper or an ebook or a guide that people can download, you know, they'll give you their email. I know everybody's seen this, but like it's essentially a way to capture leads, but it has to be it has to be done right. You can't just, you know, put something out there and, you know, do it in a way that's just frankly cheap. You can't just try to fool people into giving you their email. It's got to be of high value and relevance to your prospects. And there's value that goes far beyond just a lead in that. It's a credibility builder. It's a way to start building organic search rankings. It's a way to become a thought leader in your space. But, you know, but just by simply having the hooks, if you will, on your website, or having a landing page that has the call to action that is going to get somebody to take that next step, you know, you're allowing these different channels to drive traffic your way, whether it's through search, organic search, paid search, social, any of the ways that you can get traffic in the door to make sure you can actually convert that traffic into leads. So, you know, to that point, there's really three things we look at, and really where we spend most of our energy for our content marketing efforts is in these three buckets. So traffic, leads, and deals. And deals could be transactions or sales if you're doing more of a B2C or a retail type of business. But, you know, the point being here is, you know, once you have the traffic and you see people are coming to the site and it's working, you know, we need to understand how to track each platform for what it's worth. Broadly speaking, though, traffic, leads, and deals, traffic, leads, and sales rather, are really going to be the things that we're going to look for, and they go in order. You can't get leads unless you have traffic, and you can't close deals unless you have leads, at least in digital marketing. So it's really important to understand that that's the primary goal of all of this, is to drive that traffic that will convert into leads and ultimately into revenue. But there are kind of nuanced differences, channel by channel, platform by platform. So, you know, one of the ways to drive traffic in a way that's both cost effective and sustainable is with blogging. And I'm sure everybody has blogs or is familiar with blogs, has blogs they like, has company blogs or competitors' blogs that they've seen that are great. The way we view blogs today for companies is a term we call content hubs. And when we look at content hubs, we're thinking about a living, breathing library of resources for your prospects, for your existing customers, future customers, potential customers, and just for the market in general, right? So getting one blog post out there to see if people like it is great, but then you need to keep going. So again, back to the market research. If we're selling water bottles and we know that people are looking for a half a dozen specific terms about water bottles, we can answer their questions and, you know, really be their hero. And that's not only going to, you know, solve their problem as far as what they're looking for from an information perspective, it's going to build credibility, and it's going to get them excited to go look at our website and see what we're selling. And it's just a great way to grow your business. So it's an investment in time. If you're not a good writer, it's an investment in resources, but there are just so many great freelance writers out there. And I would just encourage anyone who's not a writer to try to write, even if you outline what you're trying to write about, and give it to a writer, or, you know, your spouse or a friend who's a good writer. Like, you got to jump in at some point and you got to test the waters. But again, with market research and by understanding what is already ranking for whatever term your keyword your audience is looking for, you can really become a reputational thought leader in your space. So, you know, building out a content hub over time that starts with one blog post is the idea here, and having it organized in a way where people really can start to find you topic by topic, and then, you know, go through your universe and see all the information that you guys offer to the point where, you know, they become a loyal customer. So not only does blogging and building out a content hub over time create, you know, SEO opportunities in the long term that will drive traffic, sustainable traffic, but it's great ammunition for social media, right? If you develop a content calendar that's rooted in the keywords that you think are good opportunities, this can really start building on top of itself. And you can really start to see the value of it, you know, once you get some social engagement and you start seeing that people are responding, and ultimately kind of seeing the organic search trends that are driving people in, you know, knowing what blog post is working over another, what topic is more relevant to your audience, which channel is driving the most sales. Is it Google organic search? Maybe you're trying to run some paid ads at that point. Maybe you're just seeing a lot of traffic come in from your social media postings of the content you're creating. But it's really a mutually beneficial thing if you can kind of create content that builds on top of itself and build a library catalog of your expertise. So to that point about distribution and taking your content, getting it out there, social media is just a gigantic universe, as we all know. There's a lot of platforms, a lot of options, a lot of ways to engage with the market, but it's just literally impossible to do them all as a small business. You cannot do every channel and do it well. But if you're a restaurant and you don't have reputation management as a thought, you're not managing Yelp, and your Google My Business and your core channels where people are finding you, you're missing out on major opportunities. So there's some obviously essential platforms you need to be on. If nothing else, claiming channels is like a good practice, right? Just getting your handle on whatever platform it may be, whether it's TikTok or Instagram, whatever. But you really want to make decisions about where to invest your time, energy, and dollars into based on, again, the market opportunity. So when you do competitive analysis in the first phase of your market research, you'll see pretty clearly how many followers each of your competitors have. And we do have a lot of templates and kind of guides on how to actually do this. So we're available, to help with if anybody has any specific needs or any questions after the session. Definitely happy to share, really specific ways to get some of this stuff done. But when it comes to social media, I just say just be selective, choose wisely, but don't be scared to try something new. So again, what's right for a B2B business isn't right for a B2C business necessarily, but that doesn't mean a B2B business can't be successful on TikTok, or that a B2C business shouldn't start developing an audience on LinkedIn. It just means you got to really develop for that platform, do it right, make sure you can engage your audience, because having the page isn't enough. You got to grow the audience, you got to engage with the audience. But the good news here is if you're creating great content at a pretty good cadence and a consistent pace, you're going to be able to distribute it across your social channels. Just make sure you do it the right way, and make sure that the message on LinkedIn about a blog is for that audience, whereas the message on Facebook is for that audience. And in some cases, what's right for LinkedIn is right for Facebook, and probably most cases. But just basically take your time, but also try new things if you have the bandwidth. So that's social media kind of in a nutshell. But at the end of the day, outbound is a quick and efficient way to test the market. I think with inbound, even if you see some immediate results from you sharing it on social and you get some, word of mouth, some people share, some engagement, that's good in the short term, but you're going to be waiting a while to get the value of SEO and, getting on the first page of Google for your keyword with that content you're creating. So, you need to find ways to kind of come up from underneath while you're waiting for that long-term traffic to start driving in. And in a lot of cases, most cases, small business owners don't have budgets for ad campaigns and things like that. So that's where, taking the time to invest in content, using it for social media, getting it out to people, maybe you're running an email newsletter just to kind of keep things going and keeping people engaged. But if you have a B2B business or you're doing any kind of service, and I'd argue now really, if you're offering anything that you can target people based on their job or industry, outbound marketing really is the new sales. And it's just an incredible game-changing experience to see the effects of outbound marketing as opposed to the traditional door-to-door kind of one-to-one selling. At the end of the day, you still need to work, deals, and you need to make sure you engage with prospects, and you need to sell them at the end to make sure that the terms are right and that everything's set, and be there to provide great customer service. But with a tool like Robots, which is a fantastic outbound marketing tool that we use, you're able to not only find prospects, they have an artificial intelligence tool where you can find leads, emails, and qualified prospects based on their industry, the size of the company, geography, and really get high quality leads. But you can also then run email automation that is personalized and relevant, right? So, hi, first name, just want to introduce myself. Here's what we offer. Here's a time to schedule a call with me. Thanks so much for your time. And then maybe you want to follow up with them on LinkedIn and develop a bit of a process to kind of make sure that you get their attention without annoying them. But, you can do a one-to-many approach using email automation to many prospects. And if you provide value, right, in the email itself and in what you're offering and in the content you share with them to get their attention, to get them on the phone, to develop a relationship that will turn into a customer, you got to provide extreme value, highly relevant content. And again, that always is going to go back to the market opportunity. And at this point in time, if you're at the point where you can start investing in some technology, it's probably because you've seen some value out of the kind of preliminary work that you've done on the content side and product market fit and making sure that there's really demand for what you're offering. But Growbots is really a phenomenal tool. And just to give you the direct example, one of our clients is a very niche firm. They're a talent acquisition or recruiting firm for military veterans that are transitioning out of the military, and they get them jobs at large private companies, mostly in the technology space. They had a mix of some RFPs, and they were doing some other things just to get business in the door. But by using Growbots, which was connected to their HubSpot CRM, and working with some of our methodology that we just laid out, they were able to get 40 booked meetings and get a almost 8% deal close rate from just sending out a standard email sequence to about 1,000 prospects. So over 50% open and 8% replied to them, and these meetings that they booked turn into deals. And not only is that driving business in a sustainable way for them, but it's also it's increasing their market opportunity. So it's not just a way to go out and scale and sell what is working. It's also a great way to test new markets in a low risk, high reward way, where you could say, hey, we think that our service is going to be great for law firms in Atlanta. With a tool like Growbots, you can literally find hundreds of those, or however many exist, and go test the market in a meaningful way without having to go one by one on LinkedIn and find their email with a tool like hunter.io, which is a fine tool, and you can certainly go one by one. But having worked in sales and using this, now I can tell you, it's a game-changing thing. It's $199 a month. It's not very expensive for what it offers, but again, for small businesses, you're going to want to wait to do this until you have a basis and kind of a clear idea of what the market opportunity is and what the product market fit is. So I know there was a lot of information, and I'm excited to hear any questions you guys might have. But the real question is, how do you make sense of all this data? So, there's a lot of ways to interpret data. There's a lot of ways you could act on it. But, the way we look at marketing is very experimental and very, I'd say discerning. We don't want to just assume that what's working is working. We want to keep checking and optimizing in real time. And if something's not working, we want to stop investing in it as quickly as possible as soon as we know it's definitively not working. It may not have been the time, but there could have been a variety of factors why something didn't work. But the sooner you fail, the quicker you fail, and stop investing in something that's not serving the business and move on to the next hypothesis, the next test, the quicker you're going to find success. And you obviously don't want to pivot into nowhere, but you got to constantly be testing and validating to make sure that what you're providing is of value to the market. And then, optimizing your entire business. If you're a digital business, especially e-commerce, for example, looking at, where people drop off and seeing what the cart abandonment rate is and all of that stuff, you got to have the right infrastructure and be able to interpret data properly. So if you install Google Analytics out of the gate and you installed Facebook Pixel and you installed the LinkedIn Pixel because you did that out of the gate, you're going to have a lot of robust data at your fingertips that you can then act on later. And you can use a tool like Google Data Studio to combine and visualize that data in a way that can make sense for you in real time. Again, we'll take a little bit of work, a little bit of customization, but if you do it right, you can understand the user behavior and what's working, what's not in real time, and just really inform decisions in real time. Another thing we do for our clients and ourselves would really recommend is doing a quarterly review. We actually go as far as doing mid-quarter reviews as well, but just keep looking at the data. It's not just enough to have it. You got to actually audit it, analyze it, and act on it. So if you're running experiments on your website, and you're going to want to see how your website performed this month versus last month, and just keeping tabs on that kind of stuff in both immediate campaigns and also looking more broadly at each channel. It's just having this data and getting it set up is one thing, but being able to analyze it, interpret it, and act on it is another. So You could be as simple as Google Analytics, which does an incredible job out of the box. But if you can install Google Tag Manager and you can understand what a conversion is, right? If it's buying something on your website and you have that set up in Google Tag Manager, you can just much more easily understand what's working and what's not and track conversions, which it really is ultimately what it's all about. Engagement's great, traffic's great, but if something at the end of the day, if it's not driving revenue, it's not making your business money, it's not working. It's just not doing what it's supposed to do. So, having the right infrastructure is key, right? But, using a data studio or at least just auditing your data from Google Analytics or Facebook, whatever tools you're using on a regular basis, is a great way to keep things organized and transparent so that the whole team can really be on the same page without, micromanaging anyone. And again, we've got some great examples of dashboards and things that we use, and happy to share them, but just going to give you a sense of what's possible there. I'm kind of getting to the end here, and I'm definitely excited to get some questions. But once you have all of this traffic and data and deal flow, if you're at the point where you're growing and scaling, you can't do everything. So marketing at a certain point goes from driving traffic and getting new business in the door to, managing your current client base and making sure you have a systematic and automated way to convert that traffic into a lead and then ultimately into a deal. So we're a HubSpot partner, so I'm a little bit biased, but it is a free and fantastic CRM or customer relation management tool. And this allows you to manage your contacts. They obviously charge for more advanced functionality, but the idea here is essentially that you're able to track and manage all of your customer data from the first time they engage with your brand all the way through their entire life cycle. So we want to see every step of the process, every step of the journey, and then eventually we can automate all of that. But as you're building this out, you're going to be basically manually developing a process, and assuming it works, you'll know how to cost effectively acquire customers and turn them into long-term customers. So HubSpot's a great tool. They've got a lot of great free information available, but the really point here is this idea of converting MQL, which is a marketing qualified lead, into an SQL, which is a sales qualified lead. Now this is applicable a little bit more for B2B businesses or service businesses, but the theory can be very valuable for any small business owner, for any industry. So it's really just this concept of the next step of traffic. What happens after you get them there and you have a lead? Well, if they subscribe to your newsletter, right? They're not ready to buy necessarily. That's not a definitive pick up the phone and call them, right? They're still figuring it out, but they're interested. You then could do things with HubSpot or other tools where you then basically set up a series of automated emails to try to work them or convert them into a sales qualified lead, right? And that SQL might be something like, they scheduled a meeting. For you, if they scheduled a meeting and that makes them a sales qualified lead, then they get out of your marketing funnel and into your sales funnel, and your salesperson, or if that's you wearing multiple hats, you're going to want to, then focus on them from that perspective as a salesperson. So that's kind of the B2B view. The B2C view is a lot easier, right? Square, Toast, any of these point of sale systems are just phenomenal. Swipe somebody's credit card for that first transaction, and you can see every record they have throughout their whole life cycle. There's email automation built in. Those tools are just phenomenal for retail, e-commerce, things like that. But when it comes to more complex, more esoteric businesses, new things, especially when they're expensive things, services in particular, you want to make sure you understand what defines a marketing qualified lead versus a sales qualified lead, and then just start testing out what actually drives them from a marketing lead into an actual qualified prospect that you can then turn into a sale. So, at a basic level, know the difference between when somebody's interested and ready to buy versus when somebody's just kind of testing the waters, and just make sure you have an infrastructure to track every lead you have. And if you don't want to use HubSpot, use a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be complex and expensive. So in the end, for us, digital marketing is just a lot of fun. Been doing this for over a decade in a variety of fashions. Started off at the Baltimore Sun in digital sales, and now here on the digital marketing side, specifically helping small businesses grow. And it's really just an ongoing practice. it's just a blast if you do it right. You look at data, you analyze it, you come up with a series of hypotheses, you test them, you then either succeed or fail, and then you quickly act on those things that are working, and build upon it, and just it keeps growing. And over time, it really becomes just a virtuous cycle, and one thing builds on top of the other. And it's been awesome to see this practice work with a variety of different industries, but all small business owners, and seeing the businesses grow from zero to one company I believe is going to go public that we're working with. Seeing that growth is amazing, but also just seeing business owners control their own destiny and be able to understand the economics with just some of these tactics that seem very advanced, in reality are much simpler than a lot of people make them. So I hope this was helpful. Again, we've got tons of resources, and happy to share them. I will say we're going to follow up with an email about this, but we're going to offer a free consulting session to everyone who's joined today. Really appreciate you guys all attending. It's just an honor to be a part of Baltimore Innovation Week, and big thank you to the ETC and to Technically and everybody who helped get this together. But we want to be as helpful as we can, to any entrepreneur here in Baltimore and beyond. But happy to help if we can. We'll send out a link to my calendar. Feel free to schedule a time, and if nothing else, we'll give you some advice. If everything else, maybe we can work together. But I'll pause there, and open it up for questions anybody might have.
Yep. So Andrew, we did receive a few questions, and also a couple of requests for resources that we discussed in today's presentation. So for those resources, we'll include those in a follow-up email to all the participants so that they can track down that information. There was a question here, is for a startup with a non-existent marketing budget, how could we begin to convert analytics into leads or even paying clients?
Cool. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, that's a great question. Been there, and understand the plight. But I think it all comes down to content. If data is king, content is queen, and it doesn't cost anything to write. It's annoying. A lot of small business owners, particularly innovators and startup types, aren't as keen on that because they're coding or they're building or they're hustling. But take a Friday morning, get up early, write, and then make sure you got a great hook on your site, right? Whether it's get started now to a form, whether it's download a white paper, whether it's schedule a free consultation. There's so many great free, inexpensive and free tools that you can use to test the market to see if what you're offering is A, interesting to them, which would be driving traffic and they're clicking on it, and B, if it's relevant and valuable to them to the point that they actually convert into a lead. And then again, there's a whole sequence of steps you're going to want to look at from that point. But if you put something out there, a guide or a white paper, and you write a blog post about it in a summary, you should see some evidence of success or not. And if it's working, you've got something, and hopefully that starts driving enough revenue where you can start making more meaningful investments and outsourcing content. But for better or worse, out of the gate, small business owners, we got to do it ourselves. And at a certain point, you got to know what you can and can't do. So hiring a freelancer writer for, $40, $50 an hour, asking somebody for help, there's no shame in that. So there's a lot of ways to cost effectively do it, but at the end of the day, everyone is capable of writing, and I would encourage you to start writing.
Great. Another two questions that are sort of related. The first is, what are your thoughts about newsletters on a quarterly basis? And then the follow-up from another participant asks about basically a lack of fresh content, and can you still publish a newsletter with only a couple of articles? So maybe we can speak to content creation a little bit as far as that goes.
Yeah, great question. And we didn't really talk a lot about email marketing. It is very powerful, but there is no one-size-fits-all solution. And just because Gary Vee said so does not mean you need to flood everybody with content, right? I think when we go into a new client engagement, we sit down, we talk to the business owners, we try to get a sense of what their mission, their vision is, and what's possible. What's your time? What's your budget? How much time, money, and effort and energy can you really commit to to content production. You know, if it's all the time and you love doing it, you know, that's great. And you probably could do a monthly newsletter. But in most cases, you know, for small businesses just getting started out, even ones that are successful, we see something more along the lines of like a blog a month, one lead magnet a quarter, and either a monthly or quarterly newsletter. So you don't want to like overwhelm your customers, especially if you're new. You got to build, you know, you got to really get to a point where you know that there's demand before you, you know, before you start investing in tons of content. So, you know, so content's really important. You know, being methodical and taking the time to understand what's working already in the market and where you stand in the marketplace. That's going to really dictate the frequency and the cadence of your content strategy. But yeah, to email newsletters, monthly is okay if you've got like a decent cadence, but I really think quarterly is fine. It's just a way to broadcast and engage your entire community in a way that just keeps them engaged. And in some cases, you might have somebody on your general newsletter list, like, you know, a prospect who just remembered about you guys because of that, and that turns into a phone call. But I wouldn't look at email newsletters generally as sales tools. It's just a way to kind of keep things organized for your audience and connected. You know, that said, with Growbots, HubSpot, even just like getting a bunch of prospects and sending out cold emails. And you know, that's another thing to consider as far as, you know, going out and doing outreach to get in front of people, sending LinkedIn messages to people that you want to work with. You know, there's no right or wrong. It's just making sure you have a grasp of what's possible. But, you know, once you get to a point where you can make investments in your infrastructure, automation is just amazing, right? You can build a whole customer lifecycle, whole customer journey with email marketing using Square, using any of these CRMs out of the box. And you can really make sure you have, you know, everything needed to manage your customer lifecycle from the time they purchase their first item to like wishing them a happy birthday. So email is very powerful, but at the end of the day, like you gotta develop your content and distribute it in a way that's right for you and your business.
Our next question deals with B2B business. And the question is, for a B2B business, would you recommend Google My Business as a good starting place? Absolutely.
You know, going back to the infrastructure, that's one of the core things. And I'm sorry we actually didn't put that front and center. Like that is a great opportunity. You know, Google is everything, right? I think social's cool, but being on Google is the foundational opportunity. So just by setting up a Google My Business listing, you're going to get search ranking. They're going to get visibility. It's a great thing to do. And then, you know, managing it and offering things through it, and making sure it's, you know, set up properly, configured properly, getting reviews from your customers, really, really powerful stuff. So definitely would recommend Google My Business. I will say it is the most analog of technology things right now, digital tools. They send you a postcard to verify your mailing address. And then once you verify that, then they'll get you on there. But yeah, Google My Business is great.
Great. Next question is, do you have any suggestions for creating content for social media with limited resources?
Yep, absolutely. Canva. Canva is a free, awesome design tool that has pre-formatted templates out of the box. So, you know, if you're looking to do a promotion, you know, make a social card. Just go on to a simple card that's like, you know, a size of a photo, share it to your Facebook with a link to a product on your site or something along those lines. But yeah, Canva's great. Lots of great things you can create for social content. But again, back to social in general, like build for the platform. You know, make sure what you're creating is right for the platform and for that audience. You know, you don't want to put the same thing necessarily on LinkedIn as you do on Instagram and vice versa. So just think about the content that's right for that platform, and think about the term of distributed content. How can I take this one blog that we're writing about this month, the topic of the month, and distribute it on LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and SlideShare? You know, whatever that is going to be. For example, this presentation today, we're going to put it on SlideShare and then distribute it on LinkedIn and make it available. That's a great way to use social in an unconventional, novel way that plays right into the algorithm. You know, LinkedIn owns SlideShare. LinkedIn likes when you post things to SlideShare, and they're going to rank us higher because of it. Video is an amazing way to get more visibility and more reach on LinkedIn. They want people to do video. So just look at the platform rules, look at what's working, look at the trends, and basically, without stretching yourself too thin, experiment with different content on different channels.
Fantastic. The one comment that we did receive was from a user making sure that she was on our email list. I just wanted to assure her that she is before we move forward. We did get another question, again, for a B2B business. Would you recommend creating social media posts on LinkedIn and Twitter targeting your core audience?
I can't say because I don't know what your business is, but generally speaking, yeah, absolutely. I just think it depends on your business and your industry, but it doesn't cost anything to create content, guys. I mean, if you're just getting started or if you're a senior executive, like write a blog here and there, create a compelling, card for social media, put a calendar together. It's really very simple, but take some time before the end of the quarter, going into next quarter, or the end of the month, going into next month, and look at the holidays that are coming up. Think about what you're promoting that month. Think about, and it's Small Business Month this month, so so great to be a part of that and be able to hopefully provide value to small business. Like, I didn't realize that until after we had this scheduled. Like, we're going to tap into that, right? So, just think about what you can do and how you can impact your audience in a way that makes sense for that platform. But both of those are great channels. I think LinkedIn is just a phenomenal, incredible opportunity right now that still has a lot of room for growth. And even doing video on your iPhone, and writing a blog post on LinkedIn proper that links to your website can really go the distance. So you just kind of got to at some point kind of just jump in and start testing.
Great. I think that's it for questions, and we're coming up on time. So any thoughts just to wrap up, Andrew?
No, Matt, thanks for fielding those. And just thank you so much to everybody who joined today. This is really, this is a blast for us, and hope you all took some value out of it. Again, we're going to be sending out a follow-up email with a link to schedule a free consultation. No strings attached, really just happy to help if we can. So looking forward to working with you, working with some of you through that lens. And anytime if you have any questions, just feel free to email me, andrew@furtherinsights.com. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your Baltimore Innovation Week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.